excited to be interviewing Marla Tellez today. And I just said it, this is my most intimidating interview ever.
That's so wild. Come on.
It is. You are a professional. Like, I do this because I think I'm good at it and it's fun. But you're a reporter, an interviewer, a journalist, a producer. Like, this is so exciting that I get to ask you questions, but I'm totally freaked out.
Okay, first of all, you're amazing at whatever you do. Number two, I am not used to being the one answering questions. I much prefer to be there asking the questions, so I'm uncomfortable as well. So
it is kind of fun seeing you a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie.
I will say, though, that I do love, and I kid you not, when I was getting ready today, I do love to live in a space where I'm uncomfortable. Yeah. Because when you do uncomfortable things, that's where the magic happens. And so it's like, you know what? I'm going to do this for Amy. What questions you got? I'll do my absolute best.
Well, first of all, thank you. And second of all, you have so little free time in your day. So the idea that you're giving me like an hour and a half is really lovely. Thank you so much.
Of course.
I know. Maybe you gave up a run this morning. I doubt it.
I did give up a run.
So I knew something was going to
But you're absolutely worth it. There's no question.
We'll see.
And I was tired. I didn't want to run anyway.
Okay. We'll see. In an hour, you can tell me it was worth it or not.
No.
I really want to start with, I love the interview process. I love asking people questions. I love getting to know people, but not just the person, but whatever they're talking about. What drew you to this line of business? What was the motivation? Were you a little girl and you saw so funny. I mean, one of my friends saw Diane Sawyer when she was like 5 or 6 years old and was like, that's who I want to be. She's not Diane Sawyer and never went down that road. But I don't know. How did you start this? Like, why did you go into this line of work?
My answer probably is going to surprise you because unlike so many of my colleagues, to your point where they said, I saw Diane Sawyer, I saw Barbara Walters, I saw Walter Cronkite, and I knew from this tall that I wanted to be in front of the camera and I wanted to do this for a living. Absolutely not me. I was very shy. I would, in fact, beg a teacher to not do an oral presentation. And a lot of the times the teachers would say, okay, you have to write an extra report because I was so petrified to stand in front of people and to speak. I was more, talkative amongst my friends. I wasn't shy in that regard, but just to stand up in front of people, I very much was. So I had never any intention to be doing what I do for a living. In fact, I was one of those growing up where I was just more into sports and more into, I'll figure it out when I get to that. And I didn't have like a clear goal in mind. And then as I got older, I thought, okay, I can be a little argumentative and competitive. So I thought, I'm going to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And so when I entered college, I had every intention of going to law school. I got a job working for an attorney in San Francisco. I did that for 1 year while I was in college, and I didn't like it.
What didn't you like about it?
I didn't like just sort of the bookkeeping aspect. It felt mundane. It wasn't exciting. Mind you, I should have probably given another law firm a chance. But I just felt at that time I needed to make a decision. And I had always enjoyed researching. I had always enjoyed current events. I had always enjoyed writing. And at one point I thought, well, I think I might want to be a magazine reporter. Oh. Can you imagine? And
were you thinking like Newsweek or are you thinking like People?
People. Okay. I was thinking more like People. Okay. Isn't that funny? And I had watched local news quite a bit. And I always would actually think, why would this, and there was one anchor who I always liked, and her name, I grew up in the Bay Area, her name was Leslie Griffith, and she actually passed not too long ago. So I'm so sorry when I heard that news. But as a little girl, I'd watch her on TV, and I thought, why would anyone do that for a living?
Did you have the news on in your house? Was it a house that the local news was on?
It was just on, yeah. It wasn't something that my mom said, and I was raised by a single mom. So it wasn't, she worked a lot too, but she would have it on. And she was a big newspaper person. Okay. So we had the newspaper there and all of that. So I would watch Leslie Griffith and I would actually think to myself, I can't believe somebody chooses to do this for a living and talk to people, because in my world, in my little mind at the time, she's talking to me. And isn't she embarrassed? And, what if she messes up and all of this? Anyway, so fast forward to when I decided that being an attorney probably wasn't my thing. I thought, okay, maybe I'll be a newspaper reporter. Well, that seems kind of boring. I'm going to try television. So I wrote handwritten letters to the local TV stations, and I got a response from another anchor for that very same station, actually. And she was the top anchor. And she called.
What did you write in your letter?
I wrote, dear KTVU, I am wondering if you have any internships. And this is in the mid 90s.
Where you actually wrote letters. Like there were no emails.
There were no emails.
And if you want the phone number, you can open the yellow pages.
And I said, I'm studying political science, and I'd like to get a taste of the industry, essentially. I mean, it was short and sweet. It wasn't, lengthy. I got the call back, and it was this anchor who was the anchor. And she said, I'll put you in touch with who you need to be in touch with, and the rest is up to you. So I went down, I got an interview, and then they gave me an internship. And the minute I walked into the newsroom, I knew I was in the right spot, because it was chaotic. It was stressful. It was bustling. I love the deadline aspect. I love the phones ringing. I love people yelling. And it was just like almost being at a sporting event.
Yeah.
And it was so not like being in the attorney's office. And I thought, okay, I don't know how this works or what I'm here to do, but I started on the assignment desk, and then I started going out with reporters and seeing what they do in the field. And at this point, my only goal was to be a writer, because I don't want to be in front of the camera. Absolutely not. I just wanted to see how everything worked. So that changed my whole trajectory. And then once I graduated college, I got my first job. I forced my way into a very small station.
That's not surprising.
Literally, they didn't know who I was when I showed up. I called this guy every single day for 2 weeks, and he never called me back. And I called every day and left a message. And one day he picked up the phone and he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I was recommended by Bill Martin. He's a well-known meteorologist in the Bay Area." And he said, "Oh, I know Bill." I said, "Well, he gave me your name and number, and I'm wondering if you have any jobs." And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I just want to be a writer." And he says, "Show up tomorrow at 2:30 a.m. I said, "Okay." So I showed up at the door, the teeny tiny station. No, there's no entry. So I'm like banging on the door.
At 2:30 in the morning?
2:30 in the morning in a dark alley by myself.
Oh my God. And
I mean, small town, small city. But nonetheless, here comes a young woman too. And she opens the door and she's, "Who are you?" And I introduced myself. She said, "No one told me anything." And she's just a young woman there too, who was, she's certainly in her early 20s. And she was a producer of the morning show. And she said, "Okay, I don't know what you're here for." And I said, "Well, I can watch and I can write." And so she started to give me assignments, and I started to write, and I was not paid. This wasn't technically legal, by the way. And then one day—
How old were you at this point?
I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was so proud. I remember like the first news story I wrote. I don't remember the contents of it, but I do remember watching the anchor on the morning show read my script.
Speaking your words.
Yeah. Like, wow, that's
pretty
so
amazing. Yeah.
So one day, I'm still showing up, and I'm still not even an employee.
Are you living at home?
I'm living at home. I'm living with my mom. And the producer doesn't show up. And she was out sick. And the executive producer needed somebody. And she said, "Marla, this is your shot." And I was not even an employee. And so I produced the morning show.
So what does that mean? Tell me what that means exactly.
A producer is the rundown, the television rundown is their palette. So they decide what's the lead story, where are the reporters going, what are the stories that the reporters are going to be covering for the morning. And then they what's called stack the show. So they put the stories in order of importance and significance, how much you have to time out. The weather gets 2 minutes, sports gets, 2 minutes, whatever it may be. And
you had learned all this in your time just watching, observing, writing.
Watching and observing, yes. And from my time at internship too, because I did that for 2 years and I shadowed many of the producers and watched how it worked. And
you really were a sponge. You really soak it up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the best thing it could have done, because there's a lot of great programs out there that I'll even go talk to. For instance, the broadcast journalism program at Pepperdine University. I mean, my goodness, I would love to go through that and then see where I would have ended up perhaps. But, to learn on the job like that, it was invaluable.
Priceless.
It really was. And so I got that shot to produce the morning show, and the station didn't, catch on fire, and I did an okay job. And then I got called into the general manager's office, and they're like, "I heard you've been working here, but you're not. Do you want a job?" And I said,
"You're like, yeah, I would. Actually,
I would like a job." So I was hired as an associate producer, and then I got elevated to producer of the morning show, then executive producer, and then executive producer of the nighttime newscast as well, which is more primetime. And that was amazing. And I did this all within a couple of years span. And, again, that was exactly what I wanted to be doing. I did not want to be in front of the camera by any stretch. And then it was one day.
You didn't start to feel a little more comfortable, maybe confident, sure of yourself, and maybe thought you could dabble with it, or it's just something you didn't? You're like, I'm not going to be in front of the camera.
You're right. I did start to grow more confidence in the newsroom. I remember one day, this is pretty funny. I always had a quiet demeanor and, under a stressful situation, and I'm there at my, desk typing and doing all of this. And it's a tiny little newsroom. So we got the sports department, the meteorologist, and then my writers here. And I mean, you're all just it's a room like this essentially, right? Everyone's doing their own thing. And there was some mishap in the field with the reporter, and that screwed up the whole rundown. And all of a sudden I just let out expletives from me. And the sports anchor who was there for many years, he turns around and he said, "Oh my gosh," because I had never, ever spoken up.
She lives.
Yeah.
She speaks.
Yeah, she speaks and she swears. He's like,
she's sassy, actually.
Yeah. He's like, "Welcome to the news industry." And then from that point on, it sort of broke the seal. And then I had so much more sass, to use your word, and very feisty. There was a photographer who I worked with who had 2 jobs. And he also worked, he was a photographer, news photographer for an even basically same size, I suppose, a television station in the county to the south of us in Marin County. So just north of San Francisco. And he said, they're looking for some reporters to just turn these pieces a couple times a month if you want some extra money. And so I thought, well, and it's not live television, and I knew what it took. And I said, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try it. And looking back, gosh, I wish I could show you. If I had it readily available, I'd be happy to show you. It's so painful. But this guy hired me, and I was, of course, I would make my deadlines, and I would do that in my spare time. And it was really great experience. Well, come to find out, the executive producer for a really well-known show at CBS in San Francisco had called that small station in Marin County looking for somebody who had since moved on. And the gentleman there, I think his name was Gary, he said to him, "Well, she's gone, but I have another one who's a really good worker." And so then that executive producer from CBS in San Francisco called me and said, "Hey, I have an opening for a producer for this great show." And I knew the show. It had a long history in the Bay Area. And I'm like, wow, CBS in San Francisco?
That's major.
So I went and got a suit. It was navy blue. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was so nervous, crossing over the Golden Gate Bridge, counting my lucky stars. And I parked on Battery Street. And I was I could feel my heart pounding, and I had to bring writing examples. And the newsroom is stunning in San Francisco. It's one of the prettiest newsrooms I've ever worked in San Francisco, or ever.
Yeah.
I should say, sorry, Fox 11, but this
Fox 11 newsroom is not stunning.
It was the fourth floor, right on the Embarcadero.
Oh,
You're
wow.
looking at the Golden Gate Bridge. You're
Yeah.
looking at the Bay Bridge. You're looking at Treasure Island.
Wow.
And that was the office. It was just like, wow. I did the interview. I thought it went well, but I didn't anticipate getting it. I felt so green still.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he said, I'll let you know soon. At the same time, I felt like almost I had already hit a ceiling, to your point,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't study this in school.
Mm-hmm.
I applied for graduate school in broadcast journalism. And as timing would have it, I kid you not, I thought for sure I didn't get the CBS job. And that was okay. I was waiting about the acceptance letter if I had been accepted to this particular journalism school, Missouri, which is known for a good school. I was on my way to work, producing Nightside at the small station still. And I went and got the mail, and I got my acceptance letter to get my master's.
Mm-hmm.
And not just that, but a full ride.
Oh my God.
And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to be moving to Missouri. I went to work that day.
Had you traveled much growing up, or was Missouri like really far away from the Bay? I mean, Missouri's really far away from California. Not that many people go to Missouri, so it feels very foreign. But was it like first time really moving away?
It would have been my first time really moving away. The most time I had spent would be on the East Coast with my aunt.
Right.
And I don't necessarily think that counts. So yes, it really would have been. So it was one of those, life moments that I remember how I felt. Well, I went to work that day for my 2 to 11 shift, 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift. And the executive producer from CBS San Francisco called me at work, and he offered me the job. The same day I got my acceptance letter. It was the most kismet, weird. And I said, thank you so much. I need to think about it. Because at that point, I'd already, in the last couple of hours, decided I was going to.
Yes. Other experience.
And so I called my mentor, who was Bill Martin, who I mentioned was the meteorologist, just because he had really taken me under his wing when I was an intern. And I said, look, Bill, this is what I'm up against right now. And he said, you're being offered a job at I think it was top 5 at the time, but certainly a top 10 television market that students will go to graduate school to get a job at.
Yeah.
So he's like, if you were a racehorse, I remember this, if you were a racehorse, I'd bet on you all day long. And so I made the decision to accept the job and decline going to get my master's. Monday morning quarterbacking, in hindsight, I kind of wish I would have gone, but it's like, what are you going to do now? Where would I have ended up?
Yeah. And if you really wanted to get your master's, you could have done it later.
Yeah.
Or I guess life just kept moving.
It kept moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was one of my most favorite jobs I've ever had. And that's where I met my mentor, she was the host of the show. Mm-hmm. And a couple of years into the job, while it was an amazing job, I did think that I had really then hit the ceiling. And I thought, having been raised by a single mom and seeing how hard she worked, money mattered to me. And I thought, well, I'm only making this much money. And as a host, she's making this much. And it's ridiculous, the gap, right? Because I'm doing the work and the producers are doing the work. Not to discount the talent that it does take, to be in front of the camera. Anyway, she said, well, you should try to be in front of the camera. And I'm like, I'm not. That's your thing. I'd rather, storytell and write. And that's what I like to do. And that's my comfort zone. Well, she convinced me, and we went out with a camcorder. Again, there were no cell phones then. And she made me go out in public in random public spaces and do stand-ups.
And what does that mean?
A stand-up is, when you see a reporter in the field.
You're just like asking questions?
No,
you're like reporting live.
You're
from
reporting
there.
live,
Got it.
and you're making things up. But people would stop and look, but she'd just say, ignore it, because they're just wanting to see what's going on. Yeah. They're not judging you. And even if they are, who cares? You're never going to see them again. So that's when I learned to be a little bit more comfortable. So I made a reporter reel that was all fake, meaning they were real issues, but I wasn't doing it for anybody except for. And I sent it off, and I got my first general assignment reporting job in Salinas, California, so along the Monterey Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived in Pacific Grove, which is a beautiful place to live near Carmel and all of that. Reported for the station in Salinas, and I went live for the very first time as a reporter in that position.
And how'd you feel in that moment?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, in the interview to
like,
get
what do
the
you
job,
do when you get nervous?
Cry. I mean, I'm a crier anyway. And I do remember I was in the bathroom. I was so sick to my stomach.
Oh.
And I was looking in the mirror and I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh.
And, and you feel like the whole world is going to see this. And in reality, even to this day, when I go live, I don't know who saw it. I mean, I was
full on shaking.
And my very first live report, it actually happened to be in the studio. So I was lucky in that regard because there was a teleprompter.
Mm-hmm.
But the teleprompters are there with the camera, and it was unmanned. It was robotic. And the whole prompter started to lose control.
Oh my God.
Like the not just the words, but the camera was rotating.
Oh my God.
And so it was like spinning.
It's like a nightmare. It's like literally the night before. You're like, and what if the teleprompter starts rotating and flies off at me?
And I'm naked.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Anyway, the show must go on. So I just continued on, and I remembered my story. So, I mean, the technology failed, but I got through it. So, it took me a long time to get used to feeling comfortable. And to this day, I mean, there's times that, you don't always feel, it's not natural. It's just not natural to be in front of the camera. Again, there are people who have been wanting to do it. I think because I'm not the kind who is like that it's still not entirely my comfort zone, but I like to do things out of my comfort zone. So anyway, that was a very long answer to your first question. But that's how I got to where I am today. And the beauty of what I do now is I still get to storytell, and I still write my stories.
Mm-hmm.
So certainly, yes, on a regular newscast, God bless the writers and producers. There's, like I said, there's the producer who figures out the lead story and puts it all in, and there's writers who help tell. But then I always have my own assignments that I choose to do because I want to be a contributor. Mm-hmm. And I just don't, it's boring just to get up there and read a teleprompter. But that's why I like the 6 o'clock show that I do, where you've been a guest many, many times over the years, because it's you get to highlight issues, use your platform, and have conversations and not just read a teleprompter. Yeah. So what are some stories that stick out in your mind that you've gotten to do in this last sort of part of your, not part of your, I wouldn't say last part of your career, because that makes it sound like this is the last part of your career. But this latest part of your career. What are the stories, obviously, besides interviewing me and talking about Kickin Cancer and the Lynne Cohen Foundation? But what are the stories that really resonate with you? A lot of the stories that I tell that resonate with me are human interest stories, and stories that leave a lasting impression. Like I interviewed it was a pitch that was brought to me, and this is, social media. A lot of the stories that I get are from people who, say you should look into this or that. Well, there was a story of a young man who was a fitness trainer. And he was diagnosed with a really rare kidney disease, and he was going to die. And I interviewed him the day before his 34th birthday. And he had been on dialysis for years and years and years. And the whole point of the story was to try and find him a donor to get his message out. And so I went to the gym where he was a trainer, and he's gaunt, but he still had this energy about him. And I said, "What do you want for your birthday?" And he says, my wish is to be healthy. And our health is our wealth. And that forever stuck in me. And it may seem, just like a tagline or slogan or cliche, but it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter whatever. It's like, here is this young man who he just wants to be healthy. Yeah. And that's all he wanted. And it puts things into perspective. And my story was shared, and he had been telling a story. So it's not, I don't want to take credit like that, but it got out there where they found a donor.
Wow.
And we followed that journey. And I get choked up thinking about it. Because, I mean, I went to dialysis with him, and that was stomach churning.
Brutal.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
You're in a room full of elderly people who are literally dying.
Yeah.
And there's him. And, he was dealt this stack of cards for no reason. And, he gets his kidney transplant. And I showed up with a camera once he was able to come home and once he was well enough to do an interview. And once we knew that it took, and he looked like a different person.
Wow.
He walked out, and I just got so emotional because before, like I said, he was so gaunt. And the next thing you know, he's just full of life, and he had color, and it was amazing. So just the power of storytelling in that regard. Those are the stories that stick with me.
Yeah.
I truly love doing the Lynne Cohen Foundation. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here with you. It's because it's pretty amazing to me that I can use what little platform I have. And it doesn't matter. I always tell myself, if this leads to one person knowing more about ovarian cancer and knowing more about your mom, if this leads to, and it does, because I hear back from women who said, I've been afraid to get my mammogram.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about it and you share when you do it. So I went and I did it, and thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I do like to use the platform. And then coming from a high risk for breast cancer family, it matters.
Yeah.
It matters.
I mean, I think of you as an advocate and as an activist. And I don't know if you think about yourself that way.
No.
Because it doesn't seem like you just tell the stories and you just highlight people, as you just said with that young man. But it seems like it really comes from a deep soul, like a soulful place inside of you that you truly care, and you really do use your platform and your voice, which took you a while, I guess, to really feel confident in using in front of a camera. But you do, and to me, your activism and the causes that you've chosen to champion and go above and beyond have benefited greatly from you and from your voice. And obviously I'm one of them, but you do a lot for a lot of different communities. And one, I don't know if you're really aware of that impact that you're having. And also, have you thought about where that comes from inside of you? If not, you should think about it right now.
Yeah, I should think about that. Well, first of all, thank you. I've never thought of myself as an advocate or an activist. I just look at myself as if you're able to do this and to help somebody, then you should, because it makes you feel better.
Yeah.
If you can make a difference in someone's life, then please do that. To all the people who may be watching this, you're having a bad day, do something good for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's where I come from. And the fact that I do have this platform, that I like to use it to do that. And to another cliche, but it's what journalism is all about, is giving the voice to the voiceless. And, whatever that may be within the community in which I can make a difference, I want to do that. Where does that come from? Like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I do like to storytell. And so if I can tell someone's story that will leave a lasting impact on not just me, but somebody else, then I want to do that. I mean, the other community that I like to uplift is the veteran community. I have a lot of veterans in my family. I wear red every Friday.
Every Friday.
Every single Friday.
For how long?
I would say for, almost 10 years now.
Wow.
Almost 10 years. RED, for those who don't know, is the acronym to remember everyone deployed. And it's just a simple gesture, but it's amazing to me how I started to come into the newsroom and people were in red. And I'm like, is that by design? Is that for
because of me?
Yeah. And then sure enough, it's like, Marla, I'm wearing red. And so I thought that was cool. And then I'll hear back from viewers. And then just hearing from, a parent who has a child that's overseas, and I really appreciate that. And it's just such a simple thing to do and it makes me feel good. And especially as we're recording this, it's coming up on Memorial Day. And the heroes of our country, freedom isn't free. And to be able to interview some of the veterans, it's just like, wow, you're a different breed because you chose to serve this country and to potentially pay the ultimate sacrifice. The other story that I did recently, and the oldest living Pearl Harbor survivor.
I saw that.
Joseph
Amazing.
Eskenazi, who was literally down the street in Redondo Beach. And I mean, he had his wits about him like you would not believe. And the Gary Sinise Foundation, he had never been to the World War II Museum in New Orleans, I believe. And the Gary Sinise Foundation sent him on a train, 104 years old, right before his birthday. And he had the time of his life. And then his family invited me to his 105th birthday party.
Wow.
And he was amazing. I mean, to be able to exchange words and with him and learn from him and what made him tick. And it was just all about, he said, the reason that he thought that he lived a long life was because he was like a duck, and the water, he just let it, scurry off of him, and he just shake it off. Don't let things bother you too much.
Wow.
And these little like nuggets from people that you get to interview, it's just like, oh, I'm going to take that. And, obviously he's done something right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, soon after that interview, he had a fall and it went downhill after that. I stayed close to his family, and he passed last year.
What a life.
What a life. I mean, it's obviously very sad that he passed, but I mean, he served our country, the oldest living Pearl Harbor survivor at the time. I salute you, sir. And what an honor to have met him and told his story.
Yeah.
Yeah. All because of this job.
Yeah. I mean, to me, the most important things in my life are women's health, wellness, and preventive care, and those that serve. It means a lot. My grandfather was served in World War II. He was a medic, and my brother is named after him. And my brother served for many years. And in fact, I was on the phone with him when I saw you driving and trying to find a parking spot. I was on the phone with my brother. And there's crazy stuff happening all over the world right now. And he's like, I have such FOMO. Like, I really wish I was still doing crazy shit. And, and it's an amazing life. I mean, it's really to be a true. There's a lot of words nowadays that have gotten like twisted and turned, but to be a true patriot is, to me, like the ultimate, and to serve your country in that capacity, and to understand what that means, and to understand that, we are able to do so many things in our world and in this country, in this state, in this city, because of those people, and I wouldn't say that, like, specifically for my brother, he gave up part of his life, because he didn't. Like, he's a tremendous human and gained so much from it. But what he did sacrifice, was a lot, and things he's picked up along the way. I mean, his physical health has paid a toll, but he did it for the reasons of that. I'm a true patriot.
It takes a special somebody.
Yeah.
And that doesn't surprise me that that's in your blood as well, because you're such an advocate and an activist as well.
Yeah.
Well, I salute your brother too. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
And I met him.
You've met him a bunch of times. He was a naval intelligence officer for like almost 10 years. And then amazing. He was in intelligence all over the world for a handful of years too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Just last week, I had in the studio a retired Navy SEAL and recon Marine, Mike Sorelli. He has a podcast as well. He is just an incredible patriot. But he and many small group of retired special ops guys, they went on a mission last year to complete 7 skydives on 7 continents in 7 days.
What?
And they did it. And they, of course, have turned that into a documentary. Yeah. It's called 777.
Yeah.
But they did it to remember their fallen and to tell their stories. This documentary just premiered in Los Angeles last week. It's now out in select theaters. Again, 777. But the whole point of it is just because these are such rare humans, rare patriots that they paid the ultimate price and they want their stories to be told. So if they can do some crazy feat like this
to bring attention,
first of all, it's amazing that the human body can do all that they do, then I want to tell that story. So and I did actually last year, and they raised money for the families as well, I should note, for a great nonprofit called Folds of Honor, which I'm sure you've heard of. I jumped out of a plane with them.
Oh my God.
I went skydiving with them.
I don't think I knew that.
Last Memorial Day.
Did you like it?
I did that for Memorial Day to help raise awareness. Did I like it? It is, Amy, the most petrified and terrified I have ever been.
I could not do it.
I mean, I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
And then
Were you strapped to someone else?
Yes, I was tandem. I was tandem. And then it turned from fright to utter exhilaration.
Wow.
Just like that.
Did you want to do it again?
Yes. But even just the thought of doing, I didn't realize, because, people,
I can't jump up a high, rock into the river or something. Someone has to basically push me and I'm totally going to freak out. I cannot imagine jumping out of an airplane.
I guess ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Because, okay, let's go and do this and raise money and awareness. And you're going to be with a retired Navy officer who he is a professional skydiver. Okay.
Nothing bad is going to happen to you.
So here comes the plane, and it's one of those old military planes. And it's just, and we get in with a bunch of people. There's probably 10 of us. And we take off from the runway. It's like a dirt path in a field just outside of San Diego. And then all of a sudden the plane shoots straight up and it's like,
oh my God.
And I'm looking up and suddenly everything's getting small and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then and I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to jump out of this. I wanted.
But almost you kind of wanted to get out of that plane. So it's a good thing you were jumping out. I would have been so freaked out to stay on that plane.
But I had no choice. And then, we have the camera and I'm going, oh my God. And then he really straps you on. And so he's behind me. And I was giving myself anxiety because I was so scared anyway. And he has to really do it tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you want that.
Well, yeah.
But it was so tight I couldn't breathe.
Oh God.
So then I'm like, hey, Nick, is it supposed to be this time? And you're shouting because it's so loud.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we want it snug. And I said, I think we should loosen it. And he's like, no, this is it. And I'm like, oh God, I can't breathe. Am I going to pass out? Anyway, you should see the video. It's the funniest thing you've ever seen. I literally am like, and he pushes me out of the plane. And then that free fall is no words. And then the minute though, once you stop free falling and then you're under the canopy, I mean, the feeling is like a roller coaster times a billion. But then it goes from really loud and, shaking to a pin drop. You can hear a pin drop. You feel like a bird.
That's so amazing.
And then it was amazing.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. I'm my stomach just dropped listening to that. I want to freak out and have anxiety.
That's the whole thing of me doing things that make me uncomfortable.
Which I love. And I love that you started out so in your career and life, just nervous to get up in front of people. I mean, my middle son's going to college this fall and he signed up to take public speaking. And that was the best class I ever took in college. It just, I don't know, if it was the particulars of learning how to really speak in front of an audience or the confidence or the cadence, whatever it was the best class I took. And I'm so excited for him to take it. And I think it's a great skill for everyone. And nowadays in school, they do so much more getting up in front of your classroom and speaking. Right. And interestingly, having lived overseas, it's a very American thing. It's not part of the British system. It's not part of the Canadian system of education. It's a very American school thing.
Interesting.
To show and tell when you're really little. That's how it starts. It's getting up in front of your friends and bringing your teddy bear and then moving on from there and doing group projects and presenting in front of your class. It's a very American educational system thing to teach kids how to do that, which is, amazing. Yeah. And it helps. We didn't grow up like that. I didn't really grow up getting up in front of my classroom that much.
Well, I asked not to.
Yeah. I mean, we did, but not nearly as much as kids do now. And it's kind of amazing, but still that confidence and that just sort of some level of like security that if I'm going to talk, people might listen, you know? It was like the best piece of advice I ever got when I started the Lynne Cohen Foundation. I said, you know, to a family friend who's a professional, she's an amazing fundraiser. And I said, well, what if I ask someone for money and they say no? And she's like, that's the worst that's going to happen. Someone's going to say no and you're going to get a lot of no's. But for every no you'll get, or every 10 no's or whatever it is, you'll get the yes that really matters. And to me, it's like a similar feeling. Like it was just such fear to ask that or to get up, put myself out there, or put what I believed in out there, knowing that people might say no. But it's the worst that's going to happen. They're going to say no, or they're not going to listen. It's okay.
And the vast majority of people they're all in the same boat where most people don't like to get up in public speak.
No,
and so I remember that when I'm up there, it's like, you're not in the arena, I am.
Yeah.
And so until you can stand up here and do this, you know, you can judge all you want, sort of a thing.
Yeah, but good on you. Good luck to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So one of the things that you do get up on an annual basis for is Kickin Cancer, which is our my foundation's. It's the largest fundraising event we do in terms of people and sort of size and scope of an event. It's actually, and it's raised a lot of money over the years, but it's not like our single biggest fundraiser, but it's the fundraiser I believe that we do that raises the most awareness. And in addition to money, which is really important. And it's active. And I mean, it's active. It's a 5K. It's now a 10K. It's family oriented. It's people of all ages. It's really serious runners, yourself and your husband. And it's also people who are walking and taking their sweet time. And to me, it's just a wonderful way to spend the morning. How many years have you been coasting it with me? 10? No, more than that.
Because I've only been in LA for just over 10 years. So I would say 7, maybe?
No, because you've been doing this longer than you've been married.
Yes, you're right. Wow.
I think it's almost 9 or 10 years.
9 or 10 years.
It's been a long time.
Wow.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. No, you're right. 100%. It was soon after I was doing the morning show, which is soon after I got here.
Yeah.
So that when I think it was Christina who reached out to me to do it. And yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing it ever since. I love it. And talk about resilience. I mean, I remember going through the pandemic and meeting you in the median
in San Vicente and like talking with masks on.
But kudos to you to continuing through, you know, the shutdowns and everything else. But it has grown. Different locations on San Vicente, nonetheless. Yeah. I mean, just the scope of people that show up, to your point, all sizes, all ages, everything. And it's just to go out there. And my favorite part is the team aspect.
Yeah.
And to see the same teams year after year and get to know those people. And it's touching.
It is. And their commitment to, you know, the cause and their families and what it means to be there. You know, the first couple years I did this event, 2001, 2002, I knew everybody. Like I personally knew everyone there. And now I don't. I barely know anyone there. I mean, there's a handful of friends that come, but you know, people are there because of the cause and people come out because they care about women's health, wellness, preventive care. They care about breast and ovarian cancer. They've been touched by those diseases in their family. Everybody has at some point. And so it's a different vibe that people who are there like are truly committed and really want to be there, and they kind of want to hang out and talk and share their story. And it's pretty amazing. And it's been really fun doing it with you because you bring a level of energy, excitement. And like I said before, you're an advocate and an activist in the best. I mean, activist is also one of those words that's taken some weird meanings lately.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But to me, it's a really beautiful, wonderful thing. It means being really active about something you care about and you know about. And so you've taken the time to understand, to learn, and then, you know, use your platform to speak about it and to stand up on stage and get people excited.
Yeah. I mean, sure, I knew about breast cancer, but I wasn't very educated as it relates to ovarian cancer. But, you know, telling your story and Lynne Cohen, your mother's story, I've certainly learned. I've interviewed oncologists because of you for that story. So I've learned all about that. And again, using the platform to teach other women and men know that you need to make sure that this is being taken care of, these symptoms, et cetera.
Yeah.
So that's been really educational for me as well.
Yeah.
My 2 maternal aunts are breast cancer survivors. I've been getting mammograms since in my 30s. And, now it's just part of me, right?
Yeah.
And I always want to do preventative things and inspire others to do that. And just to hear from women who are afraid, and then the fact that, okay, well, you're okay, you did it. It's like, yeah, you can do it too. And it saves lives.
It saves lives. And to be the inspiration for those women, I just did recently an in-person webinar, I would call it, where I just talked about ovarian cancer. I just talked about cancer. I just talked about what it means to take care of your health, because that is your wealth. And to mostly 20 and 30-year-old women, highly educated, professional women. And the majority of women in that room did not know anything about breast or ovarian cancer. And about a quarter of the women in the room had never seen a gynecologist in their life.
Wow.
And it was, we're in Los Angeles. Like, I'm not in, like a tiny rural town in the middle of nowhere. And it was a reminder to me how important it is to use whatever platforms we have for those of us who know and understand, to encourage women to take their health and wellness in their own hands and to be their own best advocate, and to listen to other advocates who are, helping them in terms of what we need to do, how we take care of ourselves, and then internalizing it and going after it. And you really help in that.
Good. Well, I'm happy to, and I will, as long as you have me. I'll keep doing it. Know you're normal.
Yeah.
And if something feels off in your body, that's what I've really learned from you too.
Yeah.
Regardless of if a doctor tells you, no, you're fine. If you know, you know.
Yeah. We know our own bodies better than anybody else.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah. So I've learned that slogan from you. And it's true.
You're normal. And your normal changes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It changes as we grow. It changes from when you were 13 to when you were 30 to when you're 40 to when we're 50 and so on. Our normal, like how we know that we should be, changes. And so to be really in tune with that is really important. And to be, such an advocate for wellness, I think which is also this like blown up word, but you are. And I think it's really important that you give yourself the credit due. Aww. It's a great thing for all women who know you, follow you, and just have even just a minute to understand what you do to take care of yourself is pretty amazing.
Well, thank you. It's not easy, as you know, but it's worth it. And it does make you feel better.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
And that shines through on the outside.